saw this on TV. Geiger was before one of the committees in the House. And he said, you know what, we're going to crack down on those people that don't pay their taxes.
Yeah!
And, you know, people were on that committee were stunned. They couldn't believe a guy could make a comment like that after he didn't pay his. Well, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to be with you today. And, you know, it's kind of an interesting day, April the 15th. You know, this is the day, unfortunately, that Abraham Lincoln died. You know, he shot on the 14th at Ford's Theater and passed away on the 15th. It's also the day the Titanic sunk. So, you know, you put this all together, April 15th is not that good of a day.
That's why it's tax day.
That's why it's tax day. But, you know, one of the things that, if you go to Washington, believe it or not, engraved in stone, it says on one of the buildings, it says, taxes are what we pay for civilized society. And my caveat has always been this, but how civilized do you want to be? Yeah. And I tell you what, that's the question we got to ask ourselves today. Because today, we're looking at a federal budget of $3.6 trillion, a federal debt standing right now at $10.6 trillion, that's going to be run up to about $12.8 trillion before September the 30th. You're looking at a federal deficit that's going to be $1.8 trillion by September the 30th. You're going to see your federal debt doubling in 5 years and tripling in 10. I tell you, folks, we can't pass that on, not only from this generation, but the generations to come. I tell you, and when you look what's going on, you know, when we're talking about being $12.8 trillion in debt, you know, we have this one problem. Who's going to buy that debt? You know, it's pretty sad when our Secretary of State has to go to China and beg them to buy our debt. This country owes foreign governments today over $3 trillion in debt. $3 trillion in debt. And the problem that we're going to see happen is this. As that debt keeps increasing, and we have to keep going on to these other countries and ask them to keep buying our debt. What's that going to do? Well, it's going to. How many people remember Jimmy Carter? Do you remember we had double-digit inflation, interest rates, and unemployment? And the problem that we had back then was the federal government was borrowing so much money and we were spending so much at that time that people had a hard time getting a loan. And I can remember you couldn't go, you know, get a loan in a lot of places. So if you want to go buy a house, you had to get a land contract. So the buyer had to finance it to the seller, or the seller had to finance it to the buyer. But what happens when the federal government keeps borrowing all this money, we have to keep saying, well, if we can't get people to buy our debt, we got to keep raising the interest rate. And what that does then, people start saying, well, I'm not going to put the CDs in my local bank, I'm going to just invest with the federal government. And that takes money away from you here in your local community. I tell you, there's some days you walk out of Congress and you have to ask yourself, you know, did I miss something today? Did I really miss something? How is it that we're going to be spending all this money? How are we going to be trying to tax people? Because I tell you, it's coming. You know, they say that, 95%, just to let you know, did you know 95% of you all get the tax break? Yeah.
Heard that today again.
Let me tell you, what's going to happen, though, in the future, real quick, is you're not going to have a tax break because they're going to have to start paying for all this stuff. And it's coming fast. And when you look down at all these kids, what's their future? What is their future going to be? Because what we've done, you know, from a generation is saying, you know what, we're just passing it on. You know, we're gonna take everything from them to us, and that's not the way this country was founded. You know, we heard a little bit ago from the Declaration of Independence. You look what our founding fathers wanted to do was, you know, they sacrificed themselves for us. You know, and when some people said, "No, are you going to be going to any of these tea parties?" And I said, "You bet I am." I was in downtown Toledo a while ago, and I'm here, and unfortunately I was supposed to get over to Defiance, but they're running theirs from 12 to 2. But you know, if you go back in American history, it's real simple. You know, you look at that time when our independence was on the line, you had 1/3 of the people that were patriots, you had 1/3 of the people who actually didn't care, and the other third who wanted to stay with Britain. But when you break that 1/3 down, that 1/3, it turns out only a handful of individuals made the difference. They're the ones that kept that torch alive from day one. So, when I look across here, I don't see what's called a radical. I see Americans that care. I see Americans that want to make sure that not only are they thinking about their own futures, but the futures that are going to come. And I was a history major, and I just got done reading 2 books on the Constitutional Convention. You look at those individuals that went there, and you look at the individuals that got us through that revolution. They weren't there saying, what's in it for me? It wasn't what's in it for me. It's what's in it for the betterment of this country and what we want to have. I'm going to guarantee you something, folks. We cannot tax, spend, or borrow a way out of this. My mom's family came from Putnam County, and my grandmother's family, they're all Germans. And my grandmother drilled this into all of us, all 19 grandkids on that site, and we all remember it quite well, that he who goes a borrowing goes a sorrow. And I tell you, we're in a lot of sorrow today. So the way we're going to get this country back on track is to start listening to people back home, because I just finished up my 15th county courthouse conference yesterday. And when I sit with my folks for 4 hours, right in a row, talking one individual after another, a lot of them are coming in complaining about, some problems that they're having with a federal agency. They're coming in and saying, I'm worried about my country. I'm worried about our country and where this country is going to go. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about my grandkids. So the time's come that Washington's better start listening to the folks back home. Because let me tell you something. When you say the word common sense in Washington in the same sense as an oxymoron, it doesn't work. But I tell you, when you say common sense, I'll tell you where common sense is. It's right here in Wauseon, Polk County. And again, one of the things they want you to do in Washington is this. They want you to all think. They want you to all think that you have no voice. They want you to think that there's nothing that you can do. They want you to think that you might just stay in bed, pull the covers over your head and say, you know what, take care of me. Because I tell you what, that there's a situation. They want to tell you how you're going to live, what you're going to eat, what you're going to drive, what you're going to wear. They want to control everything. But I'm telling you, I'm looking across out here, the folks that say this. I'm an American, and I believe in this country.